Hi, there's Henry in the bath, causing chaos. Okay, hope you're okay today. A bit colder today, isn't it? We've had some rain. That's good for the garden at least. Okay, so our story today from Horrid Henry collection is Horrid Henry's Bath Time. Horrid Henry loved baths. He loved causing great big tidal waves. He loved making bubble bath beards and bubble bath hats. He loved staging battles with Yellow Duck and Snappy Croc. He loved diving for buried treasure, fighting sea monsters and painting the walls with soapy suds. But best of all, being in the bath meant Peter couldn't bother him or wreck his games or get him into trouble. Henry stretched out in the lovely warm water, the bubbles piled high to overflowing, just as he liked. Slosh, slosh, slosh. A bucket load of soapy suds cascaded onto the floor. Yippee! The first tidal wave of the day. Good thing Mum wasn't around. But then, what Mum didn't know wouldn't hurt her. Now, what to do first? A croc and duck fight or the killer tidal wave? Cackled Horrid Henry. Watch your tail, Yellow Duck, 'cause Snappy Croc is on the attack. Snap, snap, snap. Suddenly, the bathroom door opened and a slimy toad slithered in. Oi, get out of here, Peter, said Henry. Dad said we had to share a bath, said Perfect Peter, taking off his shirt. What? Liar! Screeched Horrid Henry. You are dead meat! And he reached for his super soaker. Henry was not allowed to use it in the house, but this was an emergency. Ah! Squealed Peter as a jet of water hit him in the face. Dad dashed in. Put that super soaker away or I'll confiscate it, shouted Dad. Henry's finger trembled on the trigger. Dad's red face was so tempting. Henry could see it now. Pow! Dad soaking wet. Dad screaming. Dad snatching super soaker, throwing it in the rubbish and telling Henry no TV forever. Dad's red face was a little less tempting. Oh, just look at the floor, Henry, said Dad. What a waste of water. It's not a waste, said Horrid Henry, holding tight to his super soaker in case Dad lunged. It's a tidal wave. Too much water is being wasted in this house, said Dad. From now on, you and Peter will share a bath. Horrid Henry could not believe his ears. Share a bath? Share a bath with stupid, smelly Peter? No! Wailed Henry. I don't mind sharing, Dad, said Peter. We all have to do our bit to save water. But Peter pees in the bath, said Henry. I do not, said Perfect Peter. Henry does. Liar, liar. And we'll be squashed, wailed Henry. Annie likes the bath too cold. Annie... That's enough, Henry, said Dad. Now make room for Peter. Horrid Henry ducked his head under the water. He was never coming back up. Never. Then they'd be sorry they made him share his bath with an ugly toad, snot-faced, telltale, goody-goody poo breath. Horrid Henry came up for air. If you don't make room for Peter, you'll be getting out now, said Dad, and no TV for a week. Scowling, Horrid Henry moved his legs a fraction of an inch. Henry, said Dad. Horrid Henry moved his legs another fraction. I don't want to sit by the taps, said Peter. They hurt my back. Well, I don't want to sit there either, said Henry, and I was here first, so I'm not moving. Just get in, Peter, said Dad. Perfect Peter got in the bath and sat against the taps. His lower lip trembled. Thought Horrid Henry, stretching out his legs. Peter was all squished at the yucky end of the bath. Good. Serve him right for ruining Henry's fun. Chuckled Horrid Henry. Dad, the bath's too hot, moaned Peter. I'm boiling. Dad added cold water. Oh, it's too cold, screeched Horrid Henry. I'm freezing. Dad added hot water. Oh, too hot, said Perfect Peter. Dad sighed. New house rule, Dad said. The person who sits by the tap decides the temperature. And he let in a trickle of cold water. Now, I don't want to hear another peep out of either of you, he said, closing the door. Horrid Henry could have punched himself. Ah, why hadn't he thought of that? If he were by the taps, he'd be the Bath King. Move, said Henry. No, said Peter. I want to sit by the taps, said Henry. Well, too bad, said Peter. I'm not moving. Make it hotter, ordered Henry. No, said Peter. I control the temperature because I'm sitting by the taps. Dad, shouted Henry. Peter wants the bath too cold. Mum, shouted Peter. Henry wants the bath too hot. I'm freezing. I'm boiling. Oh, be quiet, both of you, screamed Dad from the kitchen. Horrid Henry glared at Peter, and Perfect Peter glared at Henry. Move your legs, said Henry. I'm on my side, said Peter. Henry kicked him. No, you're not, said Henry. Peter kicked him back. Henry splashed him. Mum! Shrieked Peter. Henry's being horrid. Peter's being horrid. Make him stop, shouted Henry and Peter. Ah! Squeaked Peter. Ah! Squeaked Henry. Stop fighting, screamed Mum. Perfect Peter picked up a yellow duck. Give me yellow duck, hissed Henry. No, said Peter, but it's my duck. Mine. Slap, slap. Wow! Wailed Peter. Mum! Mum ran in. What's going on in here? He hit me. Oh, that's Henry. He hit me, screeched Henry and Peter. That's it, both of you out, said Mum. Whew. Bath time did not go well, did it? Bath time, boys, said Mum. The next evening, Horrid Henry raced upstairs. This time he'd make sure he was the first one in. But when he reached the bathroom, a terrible sight met his eyes. There was Peter, already sitting at the tap end. Henry could practically see the ice cubes floating on the freezing water. That's Perfect Peter. He actually doesn't look like he's enjoying the cold end, the cold water. Rats! Another bath time was ruined. Henry stuck his toe in. Oh, it's too cold, moaned Henry. And I don't want to have a bath with Peter. I want my own bath. Stop making a fuss and get in, said Mum. And no fighting. I'm leaving the door open. Horrid Henry got into the bath. Eek! Was turning into an icicle. Not for long, because he had a brilliant, spectacular plan. Stop making ripples. Sorry, wrong voice again. Stop making ripples, said Horrid Henry. You have to keep the water smooth. I am keeping the water smooth, said Peter. Shh! Hold still. Why? Said Peter. I wouldn't splash if I were you, whispered Henry. It doesn't like splashing. Why are you whispering? Said Peter. Because there's a monster in the tub. No, there isn't, said Peter. It's the plug hole monster, said Horrid Henry. It sneaks up the drains, slithers through the plug hole, and slurp, down you go. You big liar, said Peter, but he shifted slightly off the plug hole. Henry shrugged. It's up to you, he said, but don't say I didn't warn you. When the plug hole monster sucks you down the drain. Peter scooted away from the plug hole. "Mum!" he howled, jumping out of the bath. Henry grabbed his spot, turned on the hot water and stretched out. "Ah!" Peter continued to shriek. "What's going on in here?" said Mum and Dad, bursting into the bathroom. "Henry said I was going to get sucked down the plug hole," snivelled Peter. "Oh, don't be horrid, Henry," said Mum. "Get out of the bath this minute." But, said horrid Henry. "New house rules," said Mum. "From now on, I'll run the bath and I'll decide the temperature." We'll see about that, thought horrid Henry. The next evening, Henry sneaked into the bathroom. A thin trickle of water dribbled from the tap. The bath was just starting to fill. He felt the water. Freezing cold. Just how he hated it. Peter must have fiddled with the temperature. Well, no way. Henry turned up the hot tap, full blast. Hot water gushed into the bath. That's much better, thought horrid Henry. He smiled and went downstairs. From his bedroom, Peter heard Henry stomping from the bathroom. What was he up to? So when the coast was clear, Peter tiptoed into the bathroom, dipped his fingers into the water. Oh, boiling hot, just how he hated it. Henry must have fiddled with the temperature. Mum would never make it so hot. Peter turned up the cold tap full blast. Much better, thought Peter. Meanwhile, Mum and Dad were sitting in the kitchen drinking tea. Mum smiled. "Oh, it's lovely and quiet upstairs, isn't it?" Dad smiled. "I knew they'd be able to share a bath in the end." Mum stopped smiling. "Do you hear something?" Dad listened. "Leave me alone!" screamed Henry from the sitting room. "You leave me alone!" screamed Peter. "Oh, just the usual," said Dad. "But didn't you put them in the bath?" Dad stopped smiling. "No, didn't you?" Mum looked at Dad. Dad looked at Mum. Plink, plink, plink. Water began to drip from the ceiling. "I think I hear running water!" screamed Mum. She dashed up the stairs. Dad ran after her. Mum opened the bathroom door. Water gushed from the bathroom, roared down the stairs, slip, slide. Mum landed on her bottom, plop. Dad toppled into the bath, splash. "It wasn't me!" screamed Henry. "It wasn't me!" wailed Peter, and he burst into tears. "Mum!" wept Peter. "I've been a bad boy." Snap, snap. Snappy Croc was defending his tail, and Yellow Duck was twisting round to attack. Kaboom! Horrid Henry lay back in the bath and closed his eyes. Mum and Dad have decided to let Henry have baths on his own. And to save water, they would take showers. That's the end of the story. So he got his own way in the end, didn't he? He seems to manage that somehow with all his cheeky little tricks. I hope you're better behaved than horrid Henry. Okay, tomorrow's story is the next one. Oh, it's Horrid Henry Meets the Queen tomorrow. So join me if you can tomorrow. Bye-bye.